On your mark. Get ready. It's time to go the distance. For sports news and sports review, get ready. It's The Pitch.
Hello everyone, and welcome to The Pitch. As always, I'm your host, John Fox, alongside here with Mitch Sabbatelli. Peps could not make it today, so I will be filling in as an analyst. So, bam, moving on to our first story. The Golden State Warriors they sweep the Cleveland Cavaliers. They win back-to-back titles, 3 in 4 years. Thoughts on this series, Mitch?
Well, this is what we expected, right? You know, I mean, you go into the series, as soon as Golden State beat Houston, as soon as Cleveland beat Boston, everyone said, okay, this is volume 4 of this rivalry now. But at this time, I think it was a little bit different than the previous 3. You know, there was those times when LeBron had that, you know, Kyrie was hurt and Love was hurt, but Golden State didn't have Kevin Durant. And then when they had Kyrie and Love, you know, it made a little bit better competition against the Durant and the Clay and Steph. But now you have a fractured Cleveland Cavaliers team, a tired LeBron, a team that just beat a hobbled Boston Celtics team that took them all the way to Game 7. And you barely, you know, when you go up to Golden State, you knew this was a huge mismatch from the get-go, and that's what it turned out to be. And I feel like the question with this series was not who's going to win the series, it was just how long is the series going to end. And a lot of people here had it in 4 and 5. And, you know, it was a very boring series in my opinion. Everyone knew the outcome, and Golden State took it to 4.
The closest game was Game 1.
Yeah.
I think maybe at least Cleveland should have won that first game. Remember that call on
J.R.
LeBron?
Smith.
They said, well, also J.R. Smith, but I think a sort of like key factor in that was towards the end of the game in the fourth quarter when what was the call on LeBron? If his foot was inside the arc, they called his foot like inside the arc.
Oh, the 3 seconds.
The 3 second violation, and it was kind of not. And then right after that, immediately momentum went to the Golden State Warriors. So if anything, they were kind of screwed out of that. But they were just absolutely they came out of the gates and gave them a fight in Game 1. But other than that, they looked awful.
And didn't that J.R. Smith play almost summarize the whole entire Cleveland Cavaliers season?
That pretty much just summarizes J.R. Smith.
I mean, you had a chance to win, and J.R. Smith, you know, it basically shows that whole pose where LeBron's going like this, it kind of shows that he just didn't have the supporting cast this year, and he was kind of outmatched, not only in his own, with his own team, but, you know, with the Western Conference, and just getting to the finals was huge. And those people that say, again, like when I mentioned last show, that it's worse to get to the finals and lose, I mean, it isn't. I mean, they are Eastern Conference champions. He did come back from a lot of adversity. You know, Kevin Love isn't the same Kevin Love he was in Minnesota. And LeBron had a great series. He's just getting up there in age and has a ton of mileage. But that J.R. Smith play was a huge turning point in the series. Not only, like Fox said, did they blow it there, but, you know, J.R. and Tyronn Lue, they didn't know, they didn't have the same kind of communication. J.R. initially said, oh yeah, I knew the score, and then Tyronn Lue said that, oh yeah, the game was over. And then finally, J.R. admitted to it. That was their chance to win, to steal one. And if they stole that one, maybe they had the momentum. As soon as that play happened, we knew Golden State was going to sweep.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it just kind of summarizes who Tyronn Lue is as a coach. I mean, that's just ridiculous. But anyways, moving on. Key players who guided the Warriors to this sweep victory.
Well, in essence, it's a very easy question. Although, I mean, obviously you take Steph, you take KD, you take the big four of Clay and Dre.
It's just a superior team. It's just I don't know how they're not going to make it like to the finals for like the next 5 years. Like if they even have that core, like
it's going to be interesting to see the big caveat here is Philly and Boston, right? Because if Philly potentially gets a Paul George or even a LeBron we'll what Boston does, we'll talk about that in a second.
Yeah, we're definitely going to be talking about LeBron.
Back to the key players, and I think this is huge because a couple years ago, before they had Kevin Durant, you know, it was either the Golden State was either on or they were a little off and they had to go to Harrison Barnes and they had to go back to Iguodala, Draymond. I think Kevin Durant is really up their chances of just winning every single year, and like Fox said, for the next 2 or 3 years that will be the same case, because Golden State was so dominant with their three-point shooting. But if Clay or Steph were somehow off, then it can go to Kevin Durant now, and you can get Kevin Durant in an ISO situation. So in my opinion, Kevin Durant was the player that guided them to the victory. He was a difference maker, but I don't think he should have won MVP. I think that MVP should have gone to Steph. I know KD had that huge game 3,
when Steph
and
basically was like 2 for 21.
Was terrible, but
2 for
the
21.
other 3 games was
KD,
it was Steph's
40
time.
plus points.
And
That's money. That's
but it was
straight up
Steph's time,
money.
and now games 1, 2, and 4 were all Steph. There was that play when the shot clock was running down, and it was just had no chance. He just threw it up, and vintage Steph Curry right there, cash splash, and then that's the whole thing. And when we saw the Golden State, and the whole times that Golden State was ridiculed about getting Kevin Durant after they won 72 games was because they were so good from that three-point range, and they had that extra depth. They had the Harrison Barnes. Sean Livingston was coming into his own. But now with Kevin Durant, that was huge in this series. Now, Kevin Durant can go up against LeBron. He was bodying him on defense, and then on offense, he was able to kind of come away from him and use that isolation to his advantage, and that really opened the floor for Steph and Clay. And it was an easy play for him. LeBron, he was really desperately missing a Kyrie or a healthy Isaiah Thomas in the series. And like I said earlier, I think the J.R. Smith play was a huge momentum shift in this series, not only in that whole game 1, but I think the fact that they could use Kevin Durant and ISO and then also use Clay and Steph in 3 was the key to the victory.
Agreed. Now moving on. Thoughts on the Cavaliers' overall performance?
Well, as far as getting there to the finals, I thought it was an absolute A+. The fact that this is probably LeBron's second worst team that he's ever had.
Overall performance in the action.
In the finals? F. I mean, that's just what had happened. I mean, when you have a guy who doesn't even know the score.
What do you think were the worst 3 players?
Oh, wow. J.R. Smith. I think anyone that was traded during that trade deadline. I'm talking Jordan Clarkson, Rodney Hood. You got rid of Dwayne Wade, who would have helped in the series. You got rid of Isaiah, that could have helped in the series. To get Jordan Clarkson, Larry Nance, and Rodney Hood, and none of them produce in this finals, I mean, it was all on LeBron's back. I think if I had to pick 3 people that really were poor in this series, I think I was really looking for Kyle Korver to just hit every single 3. There's 3 people: Kyle Korver, J.R. Smith, and Tyronn Lue. I think they both blew that series completely.
I don't think I've ever seen Kyle Korver shoot worse. We're talking about one of the greatest.
He's awesome.
3-point shooters in the history of the NBA.
Yep.
He was absolutely nowhere. I mean, in that last game, they were just getting slaughtered at. He was throwing up just terrible shots.
Oh my God!
You sort of expect it just to go in because you just see Kyle Korver just shoot up a 3, and then you're just like, oh God!
Yeah.
You're getting slaughtered by 30-something points. That's kind of ridiculous. I mean,
and the thing is with J.R. Smith too is he's usually such a lockdown defender, and where was that defense? Because if his 3 isn't working, usually his defense is there. But Klay Thompson was still going off. Steph Curry was still going off. So something was wrong on that defensive front. And one more thing I want to put out: Draymond Green. Often gets criticized as being slightly overrated. Now, his play and his skill might be overrated, but the one thing that's not overrated is his passion for the game. Now, when Kevin Durant or Steph, as rare as it is, when they are off, I can see Draymond out there pumping this team up, bringing that energy back, and that's really where Draymond is key for this team. Bringing the team back when needed and using that energy to his advantage. And I think the Cavs don't have a guy like that other than LeBron.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I guess you could also contribute the Cavaliers' loss to the Kardashian curse.
Yep.
If you want
Tristan Thompson. And that's going to happen to Ben Simmons next year. Kendall Jenner.
All right, well then LeBron doesn't want to go there.
That's
so,
right.
Moving on to that exact
nice
topic.
Segue, nice segue.
Nice little segue. Where will LeBron end up next year, or will he remain a Cav?
Well, I think the biggest travesty that I've seen is that day after the Golden State Warriors won. I wanted to, see. I clicked on ESPN. I saw the finals, but I just want to click on ESPN to see what the top story was. Second story was that the Golden State Warriors won the championship. Number 1 was where will LeBron go, or what's going on with LeBron.
that's what I want to like. I want to make a little bit of a point here. Like, how many great free agents do we have? Like, this offseason, going into this postseason.
Oh, a lot. I mean,
who's gonna? They're not gonna be talked about.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
all gonna be LeBron,
Exactly.
LeBron until LeBron goes somewhere.
Yep.
Which is a tremendous travesty to the sport, to the game. I mean, what you just said. It's like the Golden State Warriors. They just swept the Cavaliers. Okay. I mean, they just won their 3rd out of 4 years. Okay. Pretty much should have won all 4 if you just ask my personal opinion because of the Draymond Green
The suspension.
Yep. In Game 4, was it?
I believe it was game 4 going into 5. Yes,
Yeah.
you're right.
But I mean, that's just ridiculous when that's the top story. It's like, where is LeBron going? Who cares where LeBron's going? Okay, that shouldn't be. He shouldn't be that shouldn't be a role model or like a poster child
Right.
for the NBA. It's just like jump ship. You know, when you don't get your way, or when like I mean, he's had the part of the reason he's gotten to the finals for 8 straight years is because of the superstar teams. I'll give it to him this year. The team sucked.
Yeah.
But this is the worst LeBron era team.
Well, there was.
with.
All right, so let me put it this way.
Post-championship.
He's been there. He's been in the finals 8 years. There was 4 years where he had that superstar team. He had, actually 5. All 3 years with Miami and two with the Cavs. Now the other 3, you can make an argument saying that he actually deserved to get there. And what you're saying about LeBron, now it's all about money. It's all about clickbait nowadays. When you're on the internet, everyone knows that Golden State Warriors won on that day because they get the notifications, they get the Twitter feeds. What they want to see is the next day, oh, how did they win? What happened in the game? Where's the highlights? But no, the main driving force is, okay, LeBron just lost in Cleveland in 4 games. Maybe he's going to go to Philly. Maybe he's going to go to Houston.
And it's also just ridiculous. I'm sorry about the rant. Like LeBron is a spectacular.
He's great.
Spectacular player. There's no saying different than that. I'm just saying, like, he is the literal poster child of the NBA, and they will never stop talking about him. They will talk about him any
Money
moment
sells,
they
man.
get. Yeah, you know, like as soon as they lost. Oh, LeBron, he had a bruised up hand because he punched a blackboard
Self-inflicted.
after game 1. Oh yeah, it must have been a really bruised up hand when you're like doing push-ups like a beast pre-game game 2.
Yeah, he
game
looked
3.
fine.
Yeah,
He looked fine.
That's a joke. But
I mean, I would have punched the whiteboard too if I saw J.R.
and
Smith
that's
not
kinda-
even know the
I feel
score.
like- I feel like the NBA is like I feel like the NBA is like made of the most excuses for every player. Like when you just get your asses kicked or anything like that, it's just excuse, and you just don't man up. I mean, you never see the Spurs or any team like that making up excuses.
I think the difference is with the NBA and all other sports is it's so easily driven by the best players usually get to the end.
Yeah.
Whereas in hockey and baseball and even football, I know as Patriot fans we're a little lucky there, but usually it's a team effort to get to the end. Whereas in basketball is, let's say hypothetically, LeBron goes wherever he goes, that team instantly becomes a huge favorite. And back to that topic, I compare this whole LeBron thing, and when I saw that thing on ESPN, I compare it to Alex Rodriguez. In the 2007 World Series, the Red Sox were facing the Rockies. Now, the Red Sox were about to sweep, and this was a huge deal. Anytime you're going to sweep a World Series, it's a huge deal. Ken Rosenthal got onto the mic, and he announced in Game 4 of that World Series that Alex Rodriguez was going to accept a 10-year deal with the New York Yankees. Now, me as a Red Sox fan, I feel like you should at least get one day where if you're a champion, it's only talking about you. Now, Golden State, as much as we overplay about how, okay, it's another boring series where Golden State's going to be in there, they should at least get one day where they're the champions. They are the champions for a reason.
Exactly.
Kevin Durant, as much as he came to a 72 win team, he is the Finals MVP 2 years in a row. Whether I disagree or not, I mean it's 4 guys, but yeah, those 4 guys are really good, and they did win that championship fair and square. And I think you should have given them one day at least where it's all nothing but Golden State, and then bring LeBron in. And I was really pissed as a Red Sox fan to hear Ken Rosenthal, I think it was the 7th inning, come in and announce that Alex Rodriguez accepted an extension with the Yankees for 10 years when it should have been the Red Sox day of glory there. And he since apologized after that, but that's what it kind of brought me to. Now, to go back to where LeBron's going to be
I
headed,
know, right? We've
been talking
Sorry
again.
for that. We strayed a little off topic. We didn't even answer the topic. So we're going to do that for you now before we move on to NHL.
There's three options in the East. A lot of people think that Miami, he's not going back to Miami. A lot of people think he might go to Boston, or maybe there might be a trade Kyrie for LeBron. I heard that rumor. It's not going to happen. He's either going to remain in Cleveland or go to Philly, which makes sense because they have the young core, they have the Embiid and the Simmons, and they have the firepower to potentially make a deal, whether it's Fultz or their lottery pick, or even move a Simmons to bring in Kawhi Leonard or bring in Paul George. In my estimation, I think he's, at this point, he doesn't really care too much about the title. He's getting up there in age, and he wants to do what's best for his family.
What about the Lakers? Didn't his son just get accepted to school?
He did in L.A. And that's great. But LeBron,
that's huge right there.
LeBron said the one thing to make his career come full circle,
I could totally see that.
He wanted to be in the court. I'm going to say
him revitalize the Laker nation.
I'm going to say he's going to sign with the Houston Rockets. Play with Chris Paul.
That was the other team that I was going to say because his former teammate. I love this analogy. Chris Bosh.
Yeah.
His former teammate just said, "Imagine if LeBron goes to the Rockets.
Yeah.
It'll be like a whole bunch of Avengers, or like 100 Avengers or 100 superheroes are compiling over here, and they're gonna fight these 100 superheroes. They're gonna go to war together, and we're gonna see who wins. It's like a battle of the Avengers.
I love it.
That's ridiculous.
And the thing is with them, and Houston's a great place to start a team. I know what Fox just said, and have his kid come up there in LA, and he's been saying that he wants this thing to be full.
You revitalize a franchise that is pretty dead right now. I mean, when you have idiot Ball just talking about his son, LeVar Ball, all the time. I mean, that's your franchise is kind of a joke at this particular moment because you're in rebuilding mode. But that would definitely be
the
a
one
big
knock
story.
against LA is the fact that Lonzo Ball wasn't as good as people thought, and Kuzma might not be that superstar. Now, if they went to LA, he would probably bring either a Paul George or a Chris Paul with him. He wouldn't get Kevin Durant. The one thing I don't want to see him go to is the Warriors. But I
don't think that is possible, even though LeBron says no.
But it's not
literally there's no possibility that LeBron James goes to the Warriors.
Yeah.
Because then basketball ratings would plummet. Why would anybody ever watch another NBA game again who doesn't live in California?
Yeah.
Like, why? Why would they watch it?
And the whole knock on Kevin Durant
LeBron
is what?
James, Steph Curry. Are you kidding me?
And the whole knock against Kevin Durant is if you can't beat him, join him. And he couldn't beat them in Golden State with OKC, so he joined him. So I don't think LeBron's going to do that. Now, the big knock about LeBron is what? The fact that the East is so weak. Now, I think this does two things. If he goes to Houston, not only does he help his reputation a little bit, Houston's a great place to start a family, but he's not going to a place that, is too, it's not a guaranteed win. He still has to knock off the grade 4 of Golden State. But by going to Houston, he can bring back Chris Paul. You have James Harden there, and I think Melo would also want to join there. So you have the whole banana boat thing that he was talking about. And I don't think that tarnishes his legacy one so bit. He won that championship for Cleveland. When he signed to Cleveland that second time, he said, listen, I want to win a championship. He did so. Now I think it's time for him to assert his dominance in the Western Conference, and I think Houston is that place for him to do so.
Okay. Very nicely put. Moving on to NHL. Alex Ovechkin and the Washington Capitals win the Stanley Cup Finals. Alex Ovechkin's first Stanley Cup final victory, long awaited. They beat the Vegas Golden Knights 4-1. Thoughts on this series, Mitch?
I just am so happy for Alex, and I think it's great because ever since he won, I don't think he's been sober since. And he's just been, there was that video of him at Washington Nationals Park with him just with the fans out there.
You got to get that. I mean,
sipping beer from the cup. It was amazing.
With all this money and with everything, winning the championship and all, bonus money probably, you just got to get that tooth fixed, man. You got to do something about that. It's scary. You kind of look like a homeless man. Homeless Russian dude. Just get it fixed, man.
Yeah, and he has the money to do so at this point. But like I said, he's enjoying his time. There's that whole Dan Marino thing where you're the best in the game, but you just don't have a title, and that's huge for your legacy. And everyone's always been talking about Alex Ovechkin versus Sidney Crosby. Sidney's won 3. He's won 2 Conn Smythes. And, the Penguins have looked like the superior team, and Sidney's looked like the superior player. So I think as soon as he beat Penguins, and we said this last show, we knew that they was going to beat the Vegas Knights. And I think it's incredible for what Alex Ovechkin has done for his thing.
One of the most intense hockey games
it was a great series
I have ever seen in my life.
When people were shutting off that NBA Finals, they were watching the NHL Finals because that's what was happening. And
it happened in succession. The Capitals won, and then the very next day, the Warriors won.
Yeah, and the thing is, when you saw those two, it's two completely different series. One obviously up-and-coming team, first year, and a team that never ever gets there versus and then there in the NBA landscape, it's 4 teams that have been there for the last 4 years. So this is an intriguing cup, and it had star power, it had intrigue. You wanted to see that first, or a lot of people wanted to see that expansion team potentially win for the first year, and they did great. They established a fan base. I love what they do with the pregame stuff, with that whole night stuff and everything, and they now have that fan base. They got their team all the way to the Stanley Cup in year 1. That's huge, huge. But one thing Alex Ovechkin needed was a cup. He doesn't need 2. Everyone knows he's a great player, and this is really, really good. And not only for Alex Ovechkin, it was great for Washington, because Washington's been as a whole for a city, they've been without a championship forever.
Yeah, very true. Very true. Now, moving on. Mitch, list off some key players who contributed to this Washington Capital victory.
Yeah. Well, there's one big name that comes to mind, and it's Evgeny Kuznetsov. I mean, Alex Ovechkin hasn't had that.
How many goals did he
was
have
incredible.
in just the playoffs?
And now I know Alex Ovechkin won the Conn Smythe, so he was the MVP, but a lot of that was name power. But to get there, Kuznetsov was huge. And also Tom Wilson, like I said last show, he provided that physical skill that a lot of other Capital teams did not have. Now having Tom Wilson in there as the physicality, and then Kuznetsov to take some pressure off of Alex Ovechkin in that first line, and then still having the contents of Nicholas Backstrom and that great defenseman. And I think John Carlson had a huge game and a huge series for them as a defenseman. But of course, it's the long-standing, one of the most underrated players in hockey is Braden Holtby. He has the experience now. I mean, when you're talking about shutdown goaltender, there's a couple issues there with Holtby, but usually he's pretty locked down. And as much as can be said about Alex Ovechkin, it can also be said about Braden Holtby. That duo, they're the 2 best teams on that team, and that team won the finals. But that trio, I believe, of Holtby, Ovechkin, and Kuznetsov was huge for Washington.
Thoughts on the Golden Knights' overall performance in
just
the
tremendous.
Stanley Cup Finals?
Even in the Stanley Cup, even to win one game, they won game 1. What Gerard Gallant did in his first season, he really established that first line with Jonathan Marchessault as well as William Karlsson. I love what I see from the Golden Knights, and hopefully this isn't just an anomaly for the first year. Hopefully the second year, I don't expect them to get back to the finals, but at least get back to the playoffs. And
I think they'll definitely make it back to the playoffs.
A solid threat,
Maybe a second-round exit.
Yeah, sure. And they might have overachieved a little bit this year, but don't take anything away from Gallant, what he did as a coach in his first year. Well deserving of Coach of the Year. And I love that fan base they established. And I love how they changed, like I said in the last topic, they changed this whole pregame ceremony and really what Vegas is it's a spectacle. It's a big entertainment thing. And they've turned the Golden Knights into a huge entertainment thing. And I love what Golden Knights did. And to win that first game, everyone knew that Washington was going to win this. Maybe not as much of a lock as Golden State against Cleveland, but people thought that it was Ovechkin's time, especially after he beat Crosby. And to win that first game, hats off to them.
I completely agree with you, Mitch. Okay, well, moving on to our final topic of the day, MLB. We're just going to talk about some player statistics right now.
Yep.
We're in mid-June. J.D. Martinez and Mike Trout are currently tied with 21 homers apiece for the lead in MLB home runs. Thoughts on their performances so far?
Yeah.
I mean, you can even put Mookie Betts obviously in there. He's been injured for about 2 weeks now. Thoughts on all. I mean, Ramirez as well with the Indians.
Yeah.
I know he's been having some.
There was a potential PED scandal that got debunked a little bit. We'll see, but I don't know. But as far as JD Martinez goes, I mean, as much as we've said in other shows how The skeptics are that the fact that he's only been good for 2 years. There's a reason why he's only been good for 2 years. He changed his whole approach with Miguel Cabrera, and his swing he's been the best power hitter in the last 2 years. One thing that's very underrated about JD Martinez is his overall hitting ability. A lot of people think of him as just a power hitter. I have never seen somebody so good at hitting the ball opposite field.
Yeah.
Better than Manny Ramirez, and I think he's the best Red Sox signing. Not even about value. You can give him $40 million at this point. Best Red Sox signing since Manny Ramirez.
That's exactly what I was going to say. That's exactly what I was going to touch upon next. I was going to say, when is the last Red Sox big signing that actually followed through? I mean, in the first season. I mean, when's the last, other than Manny Ramirez, when's that last Red Sox big signing that actually lived up to the expectations? Carl Crawford? I have a Carl Crawford jersey that I don't know why isn't burned. Jason Bay kind of did good for a year. Ridiculous. I mean, Julio Lugo. All these great players, they come and they die. Yeah. They can't live up to that first year expectations.
And that's very
first year expectation in Boston. I mean, at least David Price is. At least he's average at best. When he's not playing Fortnite.
And I love what you're saying, because you have guys who have John Lackey, he won a title. Julio Lugo and Daisuke, he won a title. But just winning in the title doesn't live up to your contract. And
John
the
Lackey redeemed himself.
Martinez is doing.
But John Lackey was one of the worst. It's a big slap in the face to our favorite team as fans.
Yeah.
I mean, when you see, someone like John Lackey back in the day, he was always this ace pitcher with the Angels. Then he comes over and he pitches trash for 2.5 years, but then ultimately is a key factor in them winning the World Series.
Yeah.
So you got to tip your hat to that.
I see him each and every day. I show up to the ballpark around 12, and I see him inside the dugout looking at his iPad, just studying each and every swing that he has in JD Martinez. If you're a kid looking up at how to swing, I mean, he's the prototype. If the ball's outside, you drive it to the other way.
That's like a New England Patriots type mentality.
Yeah,
that's what you need to win.
I love him.
I mean, you don't play for fun.
When everybody's healthy, the best duo in the AL right now is JD Martinez and Mookie Betts.
Agreed. Moving on, Corey Kluber and Max Scherzer. Both 10-2 right now, mid-June, not even mid-June, a couple days before mid-June. They both have pretty much a 2 ERA. I believe Corey Kluber has like a 1.99.
Yeah.
Thoughts on them so far?
And I love that you put this topic in there, because so he creates the show, and I love that he put this topic in there. The two of the most underrated baseball players, not only pitchers, but baseball players in general, are Corey Kluber and Max Scherzer. Max Scherzer's won the last 2 Cy Youngs. The definition of complete consistency. Corey Kluber doesn't get the same kind of notoriety because he's a second half pitcher. He's usually decent at the beginning and just dominant in the second half.
Yeah,
he's won 2 of the last 3 Cy Youngs. He is a complete force to lead that Indians rotation, a rotation that has injuries with Salazar and Carrasco. You throw those 3 with Bauer, they are a team to be reckoned with. And Max Scherzer is the reason why the Washington Nationals haven't just completely fallen off the earth, because they've had a couple injuries with Daniel Murphy. Max Scherzer, he is a 20 strikeout per game. He's had a 20 strikeout game. He just pitched his second immaculate inning, meaning 9 pitches and 3 strikeouts. He's an incredible beast. I love Max Scherzer. I love Corey Kluber. And I think they're on the way to another 2 Cy Youngs.
And moving on to our final player evaluation, final pitcher evaluation so far up to this point. Justin Verlander, 8-2 with the Astros with a 1.45 ERA. How is that possible at this point?
I think the Astros, moving his trade clause from the Detroit Tigers to the Astros.
This guy is living the dream.
This is his second best career acknowledgement after Kate Upton. You have Kate Upton, and then for moving from Detroit Tigers to Houston and catapulting your team all the way to a World Series victory, and then using that and reestablishing yourself as if 5-6 years ago, Justin Verlander, he is Corey Kluber's biggest issue at winning that another Cy Young. Him as well as Chris Sale and Luis Severino. Those 4 are easily the best 4 pitchers in the AL right now. I love that Houston Astros staff, and I think Verlander is the epitome of an ace. And then you throw Garrett Cole, Dallas Keuchel, Lance McCullers, and Charlie Morton. best rotation in baseball. I love Houston. They're going to get back into the World Series, and Verlander is the major part for it.
Perfect. Okay, well, that pretty much sums up this episode of The Pitch. Be sure to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Vimeo, the works. So until next time, about 2 weeks from now, have a good one, guys.